You are 23 years old and you weigh 162 pounds. That number matters here. Everything about your body is inventory now. Height, reach, whether you're right-handed, whether your eyes stay steady when someone holds yours too long. The intake officer doesn't look at your face when he processes you. He looks at the top of your head. He's counting the seconds it takes to move you through. You are throughput. You are bed number 14C in Block 7, and the mattress is 3 inches thick and smells like the man who slept on it before you, and that man's name you will never know. The door closes at 10:47 p.m., not with a slam, with a click. That's the part they never tell you about, how quiet the machinery of confinement actually is. The lock engages with the sound of a pen cap snapping shut. Somewhere down the corridor, someone coughs. A fluorescent tube hums at a frequency just above the threshold of annoyance, not quite painful, constant enough to become the new silence. You lie on your back and count the tiles in the ceiling. 42. You count them again. Still 42. By morning, you already understand that the most dangerous thing in here is not a person, it is the absence of a category. You need to be something before someone else decides what you are. At breakfast, you sit alone. The table configuration is not random. Nothing in here is random. The east wall belongs to one group, the center tables to another. The corner near the milk machine, nobody sits there unless they want everyone to know they're nothing. You sit at the corner near the milk machine. You eat powdered eggs and think about the outside. You will do this for approximately 4 days. Then you will stop. Not because you've accepted this place, because the outside becomes abstract faster than anyone warns you. On the second day, a man sits across from you without asking. He is not large. That surprises you. You expected large. He has a tattoo that starts behind his right ear and disappears beneath his collar, and his hands are still while he eats, completely still. And you understand without being told that stillness like that isn't calm, it's control. He says, "You're from the east side of the city." You say, "Yeah." He nods once. That's all. On the third day, 2 men walk close to you during yard time. Not threatening, not friendly. Close, like parentheses. On the 4th day, you understand what the parentheses meant. Phase 2, the ascent. Protection costs something. That is the first real lesson. It isn't spoken as a transaction. Nothing in here is spoken plainly. That's an early and critical thing to learn. The language is lateral, implied. You learn to hear what isn't said, the way you'd learn to navigate a room with the lights off. Slowly at first, then by memory, then by something that feels almost like instinct but is really just accumulated pattern. The man from breakfast is named Cortez, and he doesn't lead you anywhere. He simply stops being distant. That's how it starts. Not a recruitment, a reduction of threat. And in an environment where threat is the baseline, the reduction of it feels like warmth, feels like home. Your brain, which evolved to interpret safety as belonging, does exactly that. You run a simple errand in the 3rd week. You carry something from one block to another inside a folded towel. You don't open it. That's important. Not opening it is the test, not the carrying. You pass the test. In the 6th week, you're given a name. Not your name, a name that belongs to the structure you've entered. You don't choose it. It is given to you the way a serial number is assigned, without ceremony, with total permanence. You are inside something now. That's the only way to say it. Not a gang, not in the word the television uses, a system, with its own court, its own economy, its own laws, and its own enforcement arm, which you will become part of, step by procedural step. By month 4, you move differently. You don't pace, you navigate. Your eyes sweep rooms instead of looking at rooms. You eat faster, you sleep lighter. These are not conscious decisions, the environment selects for them. You were told that a man in Block 3 said something he shouldn't have said about someone above you in the structure. You were told this at 6:15 in the morning while the yard is still mostly empty. You were handed a sharpened piece of plastic the length of your index finger and told where the man takes a shower. You stand in the corridor for 11 minutes. Then you walk toward the showers. You don't think about it as a choice in the moment. You think about it later, lying on your mattress at 2 a.m., and by then it is already something that happened to someone who shares your body. The mind does that. It creates distance to keep you functional. Therapists have a word for it. In here, it has no word. It's just Tuesday. Phase 3, the system. You have been here for 2 years and 4 months. You know the temperature of every room by time of day. The yard is 41 degrees at 6 a.m. in November. Block 7 gets the boiler heat last, so winter mornings are 38 degrees inside until nearly 8 a.m. The visiting room is always kept at 67. That's intentional. The administration knows that warmth makes people compliant and talkative is useful for them. You know these numbers because knowing numbers is survival. The time between shift changes is 11 minutes. The blind spot on camera 6 in the east corridor is at an angle of about 20 degrees from the northeast corner. Commissary restock happens on Thursdays, which means Wednesday is the highest tension day of the week because scarcity peaks. Never schedule anything on a Wednesday if you can avoid it. The structure above you has 4 visible tiers. You are in the second now. The first tier is doing what's told without question. The second is managing people who do what's told. The third is deciding what gets told. The fourth, you've met one person in the fourth tier once, and he spoke for approximately 90 seconds, and then he was gone, and the room felt different after he left, the way a room feels different after a window is closed. You manage 3 men now. You don't call it managing. There's no word for it in the vocabulary of this place. You are simply above them in a way that is understood by everyone, including the corrections officers, who have long since mapped the internal hierarchy because it is, paradoxically, easier for them if someone maintains order. The system inside the system maintains order. Violence, when it happens, is almost always corrective, not random, not impulsive, rational by the logic of this world. Creative compliance is the art form. When contraband needs to move, it doesn't move the same twice in the same month. When a message needs to be sent, it travels through 5 hands and arrives as something that sounds like nothing. When the administration announces a new policy, you wait 72 hours, observe which officers enforce it rigidly and which ones enforce it selectively, and then you operate in the selective spaces. There are always selective spaces. Every system has them. The institution needs to function, which means cooperation, which means certain frictions are quietly permitted. You have $1,100 in a commissary account that isn't yours. You know how it got there, and you will never say how it got there. You have a phone that isn't supposed to exist, wrapped in a cloth inside a place that would take an hour to find. And on that phone is a number that connects you to the outside, to the economy that runs parallel to everything the administration thinks it controls. You are not powerful. You understand that now. Power would mean options. You have position. Position is different. It comes with obligations that look like authority and function like chains. Phase 4, the erosion. Your mother comes on the 3rd Sunday of every month. For the first year, you talked for the full 60 minutes. For the second year, 40. Now you sit across the plexiglass for 20 minutes, and the remaining 40 is something you'd call a conversation if you were being generous. She asks about food, about sleep, about whether you need anything from commissary. You answer. She nods. Somewhere in the second year, she stopped asking about when you'll be out, because when you're out is a calculation that stopped making linear sense. You have a brother. You used to call him on the phone that isn't supposed to exist. You stopped 8 months ago, not because of a fight, because the calls were becoming an explanation of a life he didn't have the vocabulary for, and translating it was exhausting in a way that left you feeling more alone than the silence. You sleep 6 hours, not because 6 is enough, it isn't, but because your body stops trusting the dark at around hour 6 and pulls you back to alertness. This started in the 3rd year. By the 4th year, 6 hours felt like a full night. You look at men who have been in here for 15 years, 20 years, and you used to see them as other, as that happening to someone else. Somewhere in your 4th year, you stop seeing them as other. You start understanding the geometry of their faces, the particular way the mouth sets, the particular quality of their patience, which isn't peace, which is something that looks like peace from the outside, but is actually just the complete internal disappearance of expectation. You don't know when it happened. That's what no one tells you. The erosion doesn't announce itself. There is no moment where you wake up different. You were just one day standing in the yard and you realize you haven't thought about a specific street in your city in 3 weeks, a street you grew up on.
And the forgetting doesn't hurt. That's the part that frightens you if you let yourself be frightened, which takes increasing effort. The self is not a fixed thing. It is maintained by friction, by constantly bumping against a world that knows you by name, by history, by the small details of who you were before. Remove that friction long enough and the edges soften. The silhouette blurs. You are still present. You are simply less particular than you were. You are the brand now, more than you are the name your mother gave you.
Someone tells Cortez that you've been talking to the wrong people. You haven't been. That matters and doesn't matter simultaneously, which is itself the lesson, and you learn it the hard way. What matters is that the information, accurate or not, entered the system, and the system doesn't investigate with nuance. The system moves to protect itself, which means it moves to resolve uncertainty, which means uncertainty about your loyalty is already a verdict waiting for its paperwork. You were not told this directly. You were told through the texture of a Tuesday. The men who normally sit near you at dinner sit one table removed. Not far, one table, but one table in here is a continent. Someone you manage doesn't look at you when you give a direction. He doesn't refuse, he simply doesn't look. You feel the difference in your chest before your mind has processed it. You lie on your mattress that night and run the geometry backward. Who said what, when, to whom? You build the chain of inference the way you've learned to build everything in here, from incomplete information, using pattern, using the direction of people's eyes. And in the middle of that calculation, something stops. Not the thinking, the investment. You are lying there doing the math on how to survive inside a system that will discard you when convenient, and used your capacity for violence as a resource to be extracted, that offered you protection as a product with a payment plan you didn't fully read, and somewhere in the middle of calculating how to stay useful to that system, you simply stop. Not dramatically. The fluorescent light still hums. The man in the bunk above you is still breathing. The building is still the building. But something releases, like a rope going slack. You think about the towel in the 6th week, the 11 minutes in the corridor, the shower. You think about the number of times you substituted the structure requires this for I am choosing this, and how the substitution felt like wisdom for a long time and feels now at 1:43 a.m. on this particular Tuesday like the longest, quietest lie you ever agreed to. You are not broken. Broken implies something sudden. You are, more accurately, transparent to yourself for the first time in approximately 4 years. And what you see through is not a monster and not a saint. It is a person who was given a set of conditions and navigated them with the tools available, and the tools shaped the hands that held them, and the hands no longer belong to the person who first picked them up. You don't cry, you don't sleep. You watch the ceiling until the light through the window slot changes from black to gray. Then you get up, wash your face, walk to breakfast. Because that's what the next morning always requires, regardless of what the previous night understood. You are released on a Thursday in February. The temperature outside the facility gate is 29 degrees. You know it is 29 degrees because you have trained yourself to feel temperature as data. Your coat is the one you came in with, and it fits differently now, not because you gained or lost significant weight, but because the posture inside it changed. You stand at a slight angle to open spaces. You register exits automatically. You will do this for years, possibly forever. The research on this is unambiguous. The nervous system doesn't reliably distinguish between a threat environment you're in and a threat environment you were in. The body keeps the archive. There is a bus stop 40 meters from the gate. You stand at it for 6 minutes before the bus arrives. In those 6 minutes, 3 cars pass. You track each one. You are working on not doing that. The bus smells like fast food and wet winter coats. You sit near the back, next to the window, with a sightline to the door. A child across the aisle is coloring in a book with green crayon and doesn't look up. The normalcy of it is not comforting, it is strange. The way a language you once spoke sounds foreign after years away. You have a phone number for a re-entry program and $47 in your pocket. The phone number was given to you by a case manager who spoke to you for 12 minutes total across your entire sentence. The $47 is what remained of your commissary account after the facility's administrative fees.
You are not destitute. You are not saved. You are exited. And behind you, inside the facility, the structure continues. Someone is sitting across from someone new at breakfast. The new person came in 2 days ago and weighs 158 pounds and has eyes that don't know yet where to look. The man across from him is not large. His hands are still while he eats. The mattress in 14C has been reassigned. The camera blind spot in the east corridor remains at 20 degrees from the northeast corner. The boiler still reaches Block 7 last. The yard temperature at 6 a.m. in February is 28 degrees, slightly colder this year. Commissary restock happens on Thursdays. The system has no memory of you, not because it's cruel, but because memory serves no operational function. You were a node. The node has been replaced. The network routes around absence. This is not a metaphor. This is how all closed systems maintain integrity. The loss of a part triggers substitution. The substitution does not grieve the part. Somewhere, a man who is currently what you used to be is lying on a 3-inch mattress counting 42 ceiling tiles. He doesn't know your name. He doesn't need to. He is learning the same geometry you learned, absorbing the same pressure you absorbed, and the architecture of what he's becoming already exists in the structure, waiting for him to grow into its shape. The fluorescent tube hums. The lock engages. The new person at breakfast finishes his eggs and carries his tray to the rack and walks back toward his block. And his walk is already slightly different than it was 2 days ago. Not dramatically, just calibrated. The environment is already teaching him what it taught you, and he is already learning it the way you learned it, not through instruction, but through the slow, patient pressure of a world that knows exactly what it needs him to become. You were on a bus in February. You were 29 years old. Somewhere behind you, someone else is 23. The hum continues.